Apple had its annual WWDC event this week, and it launched new Macs. It launched new features that will be useful to you and me as writers, and it possibly inadvertently, I think it also launched a couple of plot twists that we can use. Really, seriously. Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which as ever, as always, is for writers like you and me who use and who obviously write on Macs and iPhones and iPads. Do subscribe because, well, there's always a lot to talk about rather than getting down to writing, but especially so when there has been a big launch such as this week's WWDC. But you're a writer. You know something doesn't have to be big for it to be huge, such as this. From around September 2022, if you send a message on a Mac, an iPhone or an iPad that's been updated with the latest software by then, you'll be able to undo it. Send the message and pull it back, take it back, and you'll have 15 minutes in which to do it. Now, Apple's presenting this as a boon for those times where, well, it's true, isn't it, really? You send a message to the wrong person and you realise an ouch second later. And alongside pulling the whole thing back, Apple's also going to give us the option, the ability, the chance, I suppose, to edit that message we've sent, to correct embarrassing typos. We're writers and we make typos, yeah. But imagine I send you an urgent message saying, I'm in danger. I really need your help. Please come rescue me from, I don't know, the Microsoft Windows annual conference. There must be one. Rescue me from that. Save me. You, being the writer and the fine human being that you are, you race to my rescue while I remove the message I sent. You are a writer. You tell me 5 bad things your characters could make out of that situation. And as well as a writer, you know, you're a fine human being, internet, you know all about this stuff. You're well aware of trolling. If, well, let's keep it in fiction. Let's say a character sends a hateful message to someone and then removes it. Is there any evidence that they ever sent it? I'm telling you, Apple's launched some plot twists this time. I think they have actually thought things through a lot with AirTags, for example, and the risks of stalking, far more than maybe given credit for. They've thought that through. I hope they've also thought through this too, this ability to change. It's open to abuse. But as well as that and the dramatic potential, Apple's done some more ordinary stuff like launching new machines that I think might be interesting and new features that I'm certain are. Let me please start by running through the 2 new Macs because they're interesting. But at most, I think they confirm your buying decision if you were looking to buy. I don't think that they change your buying decision, and it's obviously especially if you're not looking to buy at the moment. Whereas the new features, well, you're getting those. macOS Ventura, iOS 16 for iPhones, iPadOS 16 for iPads, and more, watchOS 9 for Apple Watch. Yeah, they're all bringing features that new devices and ones up to several years old in most cases will get for free. Probably in September, might be October, and maybe not everything will come at once. But first, we'll get to that. First, the machines. This week in June 2022, Apple launched 2 new Macs, starting with the new MacBook Air. It's keeping the old MacBook Air around, but it's adding this new one, this new redesigned MacBook Air. What Apple says about that redesign is that it gives the MacBook Air the new M2 processor, which means it's faster than the old one, the M1, 2 to what you can work this out. What Apple didn't spend a lot of time on was not a lot of time, it's on how it's physically changed. From the start, the MacBook Air, it was the one that was shaped like a wedge, you know, impossibly thin at one end, and then even more impossibly thinner at the other. It was ranged, it was angled, and actually quite a good typing angle for us. You know, you type for hours on it, it made a difference, and it's gone now. Apple does try to spin this as meaning the new MacBook Air, well, it's slim all over, but we have lost the typing angle. Only, at the same time, that wedge was potentially a problem. If you did a lot of work on your MacBook Air, and I don't mean writing, I don't mean typing very quickly, but writing and then something more like iMovie or video editing. Well, video editing stretches any computer, any Mac could get hot, but the wedge meant that the MacBook Air wasn't or couldn't be as well ventilated as, say, the MacBook Pro. Consequently, the old Air, well, it was fast, but it would slow down. It would be slowed down when it got too hot. It would slow down where the MacBook Pro wouldn't. So now presumably that's gone. And so therefore is one reason to prefer the MacBook Pro over the Air, which makes it curious to me that Apple's other new machine is a MacBook Pro. Specifically, Apple has launched the 13-inch MacBook Pro, and I really don't know why. I mean, bizarrely, Apple didn't phone me up and say, William, do you mind? We'll bring it out. Yeah, it's done it. Look, last year I bought a MacBook Pro rather than a MacBook Air. In part, slightly, a bit, kind of, because of that slowing down issue, but also because if you braced yourself and spent a lot of money, a lot of more money, you get the 14-inch MacBook Pro, which is incredibly fast. It's incredibly faster at all the things I need it for. The 13-inch MacBook Pro isn't, but it is an awful lot cheaper. The new 13-inch MacBook Pro starts at $1,299, which is £1,349, whereas the 14-inch model, well, yeah, it's at least £500 or dollars more expensive, and frankly, then some. How much have you got? Only the new MacBook Air is £1,249, or it's $1,199. Are you remembering all these figures? I looked these up. It's basically £100 or $100 cheaper. MacBook Air is $100 cheaper than the new 13-inch MacBook Pro, and the new MacBook Air has the same M2 processor. It should be equally as fast. I mean, I get there's more to it and more than I actually know, but broadly speaking, they should be about the same. For some reason, battery life is shorter, but we're talking 18 hours with the Air instead of 20 with the MacBook Pro. We'll take a long tea break. And the MacBook Air has a larger screen than the 13-inch MacBook Pro. I mean, yeah, not by much. It's 13.6 inches instead of 13.3, but you know, there's a difference actually in the quality of the screen. But until I kind of see them in front, as far as I can make out, well, it seems better on the MacBook Air. MacBook Pro is slightly smaller screen, but I think MacBook Air is slightly bigger and slightly better. I'm not certain of that, but it seems so. I am certain though, well, the 13-inch MacBook Pro has a benefit. It offers the touch bar. People hated the touch bar. I liked it the few times I ever used one, but I don't have it on my MacBook Pro and I don't miss it. Look, you know, Apple has worked all of this out so that there are specific markets or specific audiences for whom each machine is right. It's just for us as writers, I don't see the benefit of the new 13-inch MacBook Pro. I mean, it's smaller than the 14, not that much more. And speaking of, I obviously do see the benefit of the 14-inch one, or I wouldn't have bought it. But overall, for writing, for writers, it's still the case that the MacBook Air is the best value for us. And I think the new one is the best value because you can buy cheaper. You could ignore the new M2 MacBook Air and buy 2020's M1 MacBook Air because that's still on sale. And actually it now costs from about $1,000 or pounds, which is cheaper, and cheaper is good. Shock, the information you get from me. Plus, I suppose actually you get to keep the wedge shape for typing. But that version of the MacBook Air, it is 2 years old now. I think the new M2 version is the better option, and I think it's worth the extra money. Truly, Apple makes all of its devices just for us as writers, but it will keep pretending that there are other people out there. And this year, they've taken that pretense so far. The Mac, the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple Watch, and a bit of Apple TV, they're getting new features that are ostensibly intended to help everybody. Let me give you, please, what I think will matter most to us, what will help us most in writing. In fact, actually, let's detail 5 things that are coming to the Mac. Because if we do that, then we can skip through the iPhone and the iPad pretty quickly, because for us, for these features, they're actually very similar. You're getting them across all the machines, but love the Mac, start with the Mac. So the 5 Mac features I think are most significant for us. Number 1, Stage Manager. Say, do you have too many open windows on your Mac? Sorry, I went to Salesforce there and all I could think of was John Irving and that great line from the Hotel New Hampshire, the novel, keep passing the open windows, deeply moving in the context. As it happens, I've been trying out various tools to organize windows that are overlapped and things so that I can arrange them across this wide monitor, or so that I can manage switching between a few on my much smaller MacBook Pro. Now, with macOS Ventura and iPadOS 16, there is this Stage Manager. Switch this on, and the app you're using right now, the frontmost active app, whatever you want to call it, it moves to the center of your monitor, while all the rest scoot off to the side. It's really smooth. It's also very clear. Actually, you see where your apps go. Even when one app has several windows open, like multiple documents, you can see them very clearly. And with a click, you can switch between those documents. You can switch between these apps. It's excellent. It's fun. Yeah, and it's best used on a smaller screen like a MacBook's. On this wide monitor, 49 inches, it's not so much. It's not so useful, not quite so much. You can group apps together so that, for instance, when I'm doing script writing at the moment, I'm tending to have Final Draft and Omni Outline open side by side. So I could do that with Stage Manager. I could group them together, treat them as those two as one, and until I tell it not to. But still, on any desktop monitor, you end up with 1 or 2 apps in the middle and a lot of space around. I mean, and fine, restful, I suppose. It's not really. Yeah, Ventura is very yellow though, isn't it? I mean, really yellow. Also, by the way, when you switch off Stage Manager, your app windows don't move, well, at the moment anyway, in the beta test, they don't move back to where they were before. They kind of clump together in the middle and you've got to sort them out again. 2, mail and messages. You get that thing I said, the ability to grab back a message or a blackmail note, whatever it is. With email, you can cancel delivery. Make sure it doesn't even go out for up to 10 seconds before sending. It's again avoiding the ouch second, defined as the amount of time between hitting send and realizing you really shouldn't have. I worked in a magazine, a magazine within a corporation. There was one guy who early one morning wrote such an inflammatory email, it would have got him fired. I never knew what it was. He never told me, but he just told me with such relief that the IT department had agreed to delete it for him before anybody else got in to work that morning. With mail, right, you now also will get the ability to decide when a message gets sent. You've actually, if you need this, you've been able to do it through third-party extra services, like this one called SaneBox. You've been a decade or more, something like that. But if I wanted to pretend to be at my desk at 5 a.m., well, I am at my desk. If I wanted to pretend, I could tell Mail, wait to send this message until 5 a.m. And I bet I'd switch the machine off before it did. 3, passkeys. Yeah, no, not entirely sure about this. Apple, along with Microsoft and Google and seemingly everyone, wants to get rid of passwords. Instead, what Apple is choosing to call passkeys, which are, they're going to start coming in with macOS Ventura, iOS 16, and the rest. And what a passkey is, well, it means that your device, your Mac, your phone, your watch, whatever, recognizes you from your face with Face ID on a phone, or touch with Touch ID on a keyboard, and so on. A biometric verification that you are you, or at least you are the same you who set up those devices. This should mean that you're safer online or anywhere, because there is no password stored somewhere in some other web server that could be hacked somewhere. And it should mean that things are more convenient. I like Touch ID, but it's convenient because you wouldn't have to remember any passwords. Except I did kind of look into this. Apple, Google, Microsoft, and all the others, they're members of a group called FIDO. I've forgotten what it stands for. Sorry. It's a group that advocates ditching passwords in favor of biometric verification. And FIDO says that broadly, well, you can trust this biometric approach because if anything goes wrong, you also have a passcode that will let you into places. A 4 or 6 digit passcode, just like you do on iPhones. You know, when you've restarted and you can't use Face ID, you have to. I just don't think a 4-digit passcode is going to be all that hard to crack. It's like that line in Star Trek, isn't it? The more you overthink the plumbing, the easier it is to stop up the drain. Look at that. Star Trek and John Irving in practically the same breath. Not certain those two have ever been put together before. 4 maps. Small one, but I like maps, and this is good, especially you're working out routes to go to writing events, writing workshops, or you need to know the route a character would have to take to get from here to there. Apple Maps will be adding multi-stops, they're calling it. I want to go from here to there, but I also want to stop at here and there and everywhere. Done. Should have been done a long time ago, but it's done now. 5. Continuity camera and desk view. This is a wow moment, or it will be when we get to it. It will be when we come through later on in the beta testing process, and then in September, October. We'll get it. With this, you can sit at your Mac and use your iPhone for Zoom, for FaceTime, as a camera for this, a webcam for it. Now, the iPhone has a better camera than the Macs do. I shouldn't be pointing at that. That's an Elgato Facecam up there, but the built-in cameras are worse on the Mac than on the iPhones. So yeah, you could do it, but I just know mine would fall off. Just know it. Hey, all of that's good, though, apart from the falling off, but none of it's especially wow, because this is the wow bit. You've got your iPhone facing you as you take part in yet another Zoom call, without moving the phone at all, not changing it, tilting, not altering settings. The same trio of lenses that are looking you in the eye can also look down at your desk simultaneously. So demonstrate your wonderful calligraphic handwriting in a Zoom call. That's wow. That is wow. There is another feature, a 6th one, that's coming, I think is really good for us, a collaborating brainstorming feature called Freeform, which looks like it could be very good for writers working together, combining ideas, but it's not coming with the rest of all of this. It'll be sometime towards the end of 2022, but Freeform, I think we'll be coming back to that. And Freeform will be on the Mac, iPhone and iPad. And speaking of the iPhone and the iPad, I'm pretty sure this, all of what you've just heard about with the Mac is coming to these devices too. And I do like that one thing across all of them. Yeah, the iPhone is gaining more. It's also gaining a much changed lock screen, which is going to let you adjust what information is shown on it and more easily decide what image you've got there, or have the image changing easily. Plus, all of this can tie into focus modes, so that swiping to a lock screen of a photo with a restful ocean could, if you like, switch on your fitness workout focus mode. There are a lot of new features and refinements in iOS 16 and iPad 16 and the Mac actually that are nice, and we deserve nice things. We will use the nice things. But like I say, few seem especially for you and me as writers. Oh, one thing that does seem to be built for us, that built for writers with iPhones anyway, is improved dictation. Right now on an iPhone, if you wanted to dictate a message or any kind of text, you tap the microphone button at the bottom of the keyboard goes away, you say what you've got to say, then you tap the keyboard button and the keyboard comes back and you schlep back through the message, correcting all of the mistakes. From iOS 16 onwards, that keyboard no longer goes away. It doesn't go away as you dictate, so it stays there, so you can type a correction as you're dictating, as you're speaking. Plus, I'm used, when I do use dictating, I'm used to dictating punctuation. The way I might say new paragraph, open speech marks, comma, and all of that. Now, from iOS 16 onwards, the iPhone's dictation is supposed to take care of all of that for you with what Apple's calling automatic punctuation and emoji dictation. I can't see this automatic punctuation thing will possibly know when you or I want to add a new paragraph. So there's something left for writers to do here, but it should at least cut down the number of times you do have to go back putting in the right commas and apostrophes in a message that you dictated. Oddly, even though I'm less keen on Stage Manager for the Mac than I was when it was demonstrated by Apple, and as I think I will be when I'm using it on a smaller screen, I'm actually quite a lot more keen on using the same thing on the iPad. I think it's going to be just right there somehow, and more obviously easy to use than all the current ways of switching between apps on an iPad. Oh, please tell me that you switch between apps as much as I do. I remember the days when we used to have one word processor. We'd open up the one word processor, we'd write whatever we had to write, and we'd close the one word. They were simpler times, weren't they? Listen, doubtlessly I'll be coming back to the new macOS Ventura, the new iOS 16 and the new iPadOS 16 as they come out, particularly with that freeform collaboration feature. It's all coming. It's all free. It's remarkable. But that is it for now for this edition of 58 Keys. Thank you very much for watching. Now, take care of yourself. Write more or dictate more if you need it. I'm a typer myself. I love typing, but as long as you get the writing done, and I'll see you soon.